Now, it's been a minute since Norway played in a major tournament, 25 years in fact, a quarter century, as Norway last played in Euro 2000. Now, however, they followed up yet another disappointing qualification campaign, that being the Euro 2024 qualifiers, with one that has gone above and beyond all expectations. Norway aren't just getting results, they are absolutely stomping their opponents into the ground in a manner so vicious, it's like they don't want to leave anything to chance for these qualifiers. What, have they not played in a tournament for a quarter of a century or something? I mean, Erling Haaland said as much kind of, as Norway continued to pump 11 goals past the Moldovan keeper, rushing to get the ball every time as if they were still a goal down in the 89th minute. The keeper, Christian Avram, later said, quote, "He was apologizing to me for rushing after every goal. He said they had to keep going because of the goal difference." Don't worry, Avram, even if they have scored an astounding 29 goals in 6 matches and have only conceded 3, the Rabona TV jinx will take care of Norway just as it did Greece. Just joking, of course. Jinxes aren't real, guys. Come on. Grow up. But speaking of Erling Haaland, to produce a player of that caliber for the sport, rather than a fantastic cross-country skier or handball player, which they're excellent at, was a welcome surprise. But remember, before him was Martin Odegaard. 2 stars from the top teams in England, both come from Norway. To have 2 players of that notoriety within the same generation is incredible for the footballing reputation of a country like Norway, on top of guys like Sander Berge, Sorloth, and the incoming generation is pretty damn good as well. Sverre Nypan, who actually signed with Man City as well, Antonio Nusa, Oscar Bob, and so many more. So how did Norway go from 3 tournaments in a row, kind of, to a major dark period, and now probably stronger than ever?
But the ominous spectre of a final group game against Brazil loomed large.
So what you just heard was from the 1998 World Cup, the last World Cup that Norway competed at. But prior to that, they also played at the 1994 World Cup in the USA, which was their first World Cup since 1938. In the States in 94, with 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss, they went out in the group stage with just a single goal scored. However, while they failed to qualify for Euro 96, they managed to qualify for the 1998 World Cup with quite the talented team. In all, Norway would often be seen in the FIFA World Rankings top 10 around this time. They weren't nobodies, right? They were quite strong, with the likes of Tor André Flo, the other 2 Flows, Henning Berg, Øyvind Lennartsen, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ståle Solbakken, the current head coach of Norway, and Egil Olsen, the coach at the time. They drew both of their opening matches against Morocco and Scotland, tripling their goal count compared to the 4 years prior in the US, but needed a win in their final match to have a shot at qualifying for the next round. But like the earlier clip said, the specter of a final group game against Brazil loomed large. Against Brazil, Norway won the match. They defeated Brazil, the finalists, with 2 goals in the final 10 minutes. They then went on to play Italy in the round of 16, losing 1-0 with a 24-year-old Bobo Vieri scoring the only goal of the match, eliminating them just as they had in 1938. Euro 2000, the only European championship Norway has ever competed in, saw them finish level on points with FR Yugoslavia in the group, but going out on head-to-head as they lost 1-0 against FR Yugoslavia in Liège during the second match day. From there, though, it's been absolutely barren for Norway. Back in 1994, the World Cup squad had a Haaland and a Sorloth, except they were, of course, Alf Ingi and Goran. 31 years later, those names are representative of the progress Norway has made. Because it wasn't just the international level, but beyond Rosenborg in 2007-2008, Norwegian sides didn't make it into the Champions League. You know, in fact, from 2010 to 2020, Norwegian's teams never even made it to the quarterfinals of a European competition. But the plans to get Norwegian football on its feet had begun much earlier than 2020. Norway had the same realization that many emerging football nations have had. We gotta invest in our youth. If we want to develop great players, then we need to have great coaches. And in a place like Norway, we also have to have great pitches for these kids to play on, which means we gotta have artificial pitches. The climate just doesn't allow for natural. By the time 2015 rolled around, according to Norwegian coach Ronny Deila, quote, "If you want skills and technique, you have to play on better surfaces. They are much better in Norway, where 60% of our pitches are artificial. Part of developing talent is by giving kids in teams a place to practice and play, but you need to foster a culture of football within the community as well, within the country as well." And that's exactly what Norway did. According According to Håkon Grotland, the head of the Norwegian Football Association's player development program, quote, "Without exception, the players who are the best have played a lot of street football." So what did the Norwegian Football Association, or NFF, do? Invest in building small-sided pitches in Norwegian communities for kids to play on whenever they want, to develop their skills on their own. Just as a side note, but many of Norway's top talents that are coming through and are establishing themselves right now are creative attackers and wingers, guys who would be good in small spaces. Maybe Norway was onto something here. I mean, that was a rhetorical question, of course. Of course, that helps. Now, I know that things like this seem obvious. Investing in artificial pitches in a place like Norway where the freezing climate doesn't allow for natural pitches year-round, yeah, of course that helps. Investing in communities to build small-sided pitches for local kids to freely play on whenever they like, of course that helps, not only in seeing kids develop their control and ability in tight spaces, but it fosters that culture of football that I was talking about. It's all obvious, yes, but for a country to actually do it is another thing entirely, right? And you can see where it's leading. Another thing, to actually invest in modernizing your youth programs, such as Norway did. They took on the Clairefontaine type of model that France uses, sort of, and that the best young talents are sent to this national team school to get access to the best coaches in the country. Surely you've heard of Clairefontaine and some of the most famous graduates like Kylian Mbappe, Thierry Henry, Nicolas Anelka, William Gallas, Olivier Giroud. Norway set this up as well, sort of, called the Landslagsskolen. Sorry about that, Norwegians, which translates to the National Team Academy, the apex of which sees the best 12 to 16-year-old players from across the country training and learning together. Establishing this also established a brand new structure in Norway in that the development pyramid was created. From the lowest level to the highest, it goes zone, district team, and top group. But the investment and development wasn't just for players. According to Transfer Room, linked below, the NFF hired 20 full-time coaches and 700 part-time coaches. These professional coaches would help develop and train the part-time coaches, where previously volunteers, often just the parents of a kid who was on the team, would just do their best from what information on coaching they could find on the internet or whatever. They were actually learning best practices and techniques for getting the most out of a player's potential from the professional coaches in the program. Now, on top of this, the domestic league and its clubs made some changes, going beyond just the modernization of training facilities, utilization of data, analytics, etc. The clubs in the league itself shifted their focus to their local talent and developing youth rather than seeking whatever washed-up player they could find in the transfer market. I mean, respect to, washed-up talents everywhere. You provide people in growing football markets a fun moment or talking point when you come to town, like seeing Steven Gerrard play at Stade Saputo in Montreal, pretty cool. But anyway, those efforts show in two key stats when you look at the Eliteserien. The average age of players across the entire league is just 25.1 years old, and the percentage of foreign players in the entire league, just 30%. Here's a look at some of the top leagues, which of course have more foreign players because they have more prestigious clubs that players want to play at and so on and so forth. But still, it's fun to give an idea of the foreign talent in each league. And so when you combine all of these things, well, here's the ingredients for a potent football program improving cocktail. Invest in facilities for your teams to play on. Invest in building a community or culture of football by doing stuff like building public pitches in communities across the country. Invest in top-notch coaching that can have a trickle-down effect of improved coaching across the country, and ensure that your domestic league is giving opportunities to domestic talent as much as possible in order for them to establish themselves and have a real shot at a career. And what does that lead to? Well, probably at the next World Cup.
We'll have one of the best players in the world that he's going to be a Norwegian.
Yeah, I mean, amongst many other talents, right? Look at what Jens Petter Hauge did to Tottenham the other day. You have a young guy in Schjelderup at Benfica. Well, he's 21 now, but looks like a baby still looks young. You have all kinds of talented players all over Europe, but all of them pale in comparison to Erling Haaland. Respect to Martin Odegaard. Fantastic player, but Haaland is just an all-conquering machine, generational talent. He scored 12 goals in 6 qualifying matches, 12 of the 26, that's almost 50%. For club and country this season, he's on 21 goals in 12 matches. I mean, it took Ronaldo and Messi over 100 matches to hit 50 goals for their respective countries, and while neither played as a striker, or at least not when he was young in Ronaldo's case, it's still absolutely incredible that Haaland hit that mark in less than 50 appearances, taking just 46 appearances to notch 51 goals for Norway. But hey, I already did a video on Haaland this season and how ridiculous he has been. The point is, this Norwegian side is virtually qualified for the World Cup, though none of them are acknowledging it. They don't want the Rabona jinx, nor do they want to jinx themselves. With a win against Estonia next month, they will be back at the World Cup for the first time since 1998, and that long, drawn-out, barren period will finally be over. Israel's coach said that he sees Norway alongside Spain as one of the two best teams in Europe. That's also something you say about your opponent, no matter who they are, after you get absolutely smoked by them. But to even be thought of in those kinds of terms, it just goes to show how strong this Norwegian side are and how they've risen from the ruin. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and take care.